I just felt pretty worthless because he didn't even apologise.
Did you feel, did you ever receive an apology from your father?
No.
Did you ever receive, well, you've read some of these statements of some of the elders that were involved in the committee meetings, and they have spoken about having provided support to you. What can you say about that?
I am actually probably really insulted that all this time, they have believed that they have supported me. And I think, from my experience, dealing with the different systems, the religious system and secular system or the legal system, the support, I can compare the support and the processes. So, and I think it would probably hold a bit of weight to those particular elders, Dino, Kevin, Ron, Vincent O'Toole and the Watchtower Society, that their processes aren't processes. There are no processes. There's no protection at all. And the way that they dealt with is very, very traumatic and very difficult to do. And on the other hand, the people that were supposed to be worldly and scary were complete strangers to me, particularly the first detective that I spoke to, Natalie Bennett. And even the people here at the Royal Commission, the team here, they're complete strangers, and I have had more support, acknowledgement and acceptance from complete strangers than I have ever had from anyone in the congregation.
And when you talked about the officer, Natalie Bennett, the officer that was the officer in charge of your case against your father, or the case against your father, I should say. Now, you had a good relationship with her? You trusted her?
Yes.
And initially she was, initially it was the case that you were reluctant to talk to other police, is that?
Oh, yes. I was very nervous making that phone call, very, very scared because of the, obviously not bringing reproach on Jehovah's name, and that I initially spoke to a male, and I said to him, can I please speak to a female? And her voice was very caring, non-judgmental, supportive, and she actually reminded me of one of the two people that I was not allowed to speak with in the Mariba congregation. And I remember that she said to me, oh, look, can you do a statement at the place where I live? And I said, she said, you just have to go in and do, and I said, oh, no, I'm not doing it unless I speak to her. So she flew all the way up from where she was and took my statement.
And you just mentioned that she reminded you of two people in the congregation that you
One of two, yeah.
One of two people that you weren't allowed to speak with. Can you explain to the Commission what you mean by that?
My father had specific people that he would not allow me to talk to, even within the Jehovah's Witnesses. Am I allowed to say this person's name?
Probably doesn't. I don't think it matters. Perhaps not to say it.
No. Anyway,
up to you. Sorry.
You could write it down if you want.
Oh, okay. And she was kind to me. She wasn't mean like all of the other women in the congregation, people, males, whatever. and she seemed to have a empathy for me, and yeah, a little bit of protectiveness, I think, and I think that's why my father didn't allow me to speak to her.
Did you ever, were you ever offered any sort of support person during the committee process other than to have your mother involved at one stage?
No, my mother wasn't in the committee meetings. She was only allowed in one. No.
Did you ever indicate to anyone that you would like as some person that you trusted there?
I didn't even know I was allowed to do that.
Were you ever given any biblical guidance from the scriptures about how a person who has experienced sex abuse might deal with it?
Apart from putting my tears in a bottle, in that letter.
And when the letter that you're referring to, that is the letter from that's the letter from the Watchtower and Tract Society.
Yes.
To you in response to your letter in 1995. So that was in early 1996.
Yes. There were no talks or talks given from the platform, and normally something, if it was important, it would have been given in not just in the magazine articles. It would be given as a talk to the congregation.
So if there was an issue in the congregation, that would be the subject of a talk at Kingdom Hall.
Yes.
Right. And so a matter of topic would be put up there. And you've experienced a period of vilification. I think you've said after the committee meetings, you felt that people mistrusted you. Sorry, I'll withdraw that. That they had said that you had been a liar.
Yes, that's correct.
Was there ever any talks from Kingdom Hall about encouraging the congregation not to speak ill of people who might have made such accusations?
No.
Was there any support given to you at all about your own feelings of shame?
No.
Excuse me. You've said in your statement and to a counsel assisting that the legal process was a much better one for you. How did it make you feel as a result of that final outcome, obtaining an outcome through the court process?
I'd like to let all the victims know that are listening to this, and the elders, that by going to the police and speaking to Natalie Bennett, and it was the very first time that somebody actually thought that what he did, my father did, was wrong, and he needed to answer for that. I didn't even really know that it was a crime. I mean, and just that acknowledgement and knowing that the court process had rules of evidence and rules. He couldn't just come up and say what he wanted, and he couldn't threaten me. And I felt protected, and I felt supported because they provided counsellors before and after, and they looked after me. And even to this day, I still stay in contact with Ronald Swanwick, which was the DPP at that stage, and the investigator, police investigator Natalie Bennett. So, yeah, I still, you know, when you compare that.
And you would agree, nevertheless, that 3 trials was nevertheless a fairly gruelling process of itself. Having to give evidence at 3 trials and be cross-examined was of itself a difficult process.
Yeah, it was difficult, but nowhere near as traumatic as what the elders put me through, and the vilification of the congregation in Mareeba. Nowhere near it.
And you've mentioned previously a recommendation about what outcomes you would like to see from this commission. Is there anything further that you would like to see? Like I think you mentioned that you advocate that people obviously go through a legal process if they go to a police. Is there any other recommendations that you would like to see or changes that you think would assist if a young Jehovah's Witness child was abused, what would assist to ensure that their voice was heard?
I feel that if the mandatory reporting laws were introduced across Australia, given the nature of the Jehovah's Witness organisation and the way they work with their vilification practices, I feel that they could still act in the same way. So from that perspective, I think it is really essential that they need to be financially accountable and also criminally if they don't protect the children in the congregation.
And what about information within the congregation to ensure that that other children are not exposed to a person who may commit a sexual abuse offence?
The practice of reinstating them into the congregation after they said sorry or they appear to be repentant isn't enough. The pedophiles generally reoffend, as in the case of my father, like couldn't control himself with just one daughter, had to assault all of us. I think there needs to be a database, and I honestly believe that once they've offended in the congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses and even externally, that well, particularly in the congregation, because it's like a family network, everybody's trusted, and they don't disclose to other people in the congregation. In fact, if I could just say this, you know, from time to time, witnesses will come and knock on my door, and I normally sort of say, you know, I'm not interested. And last year, actually, there was a lady that came to my door, and she had a son with her, and I felt compelled to tell her to be careful of people in the congregations, particularly those ones that appear to be really righteous. And she was grateful that I said that to her. I said and then I explained that I was no longer practicing Jehovah's Witness, and she knew of what had happened to me. She knew who I was. She knew all the details. She was asking me questions. So I think the confidentiality, even, like, the elders speak about their confidentiality and they can't disclose anything to the police or whatever, but all of my details are out there. They've disclosed they protect the accuser in that sense, and my details are out there. Everybody knows what's happened. They've breached my confidentiality.
And did you feel protected at all by the Jehovah's Witnesses?
Definitely not.
Thank you.
BCG, in paragraph 69 of your statement, you mentioned that the elders who presided over the committee and the appeal meeting gave evidence at the committal. and at voir dire during the first trial. Did they give evidence, to your knowledge, in the latter two trials?
I don't recall that they did, and I was really quite upset about that because I'd done the right thing and I spoke up straight away while it was fresh in my memory, and I believe they even took notes and details in the meetings, and I thought for sure they'll be able to corroborate that that this happened, instead of me coming back so many years later and all of a sudden out of the blue I've remembered some abuse that's happened. I've said it I've spoken about my father's abuse ever since it's happened, every chance I've gotten. So I was very disappointed that they didn't give evidence.
When they gave evidence at the committal, were they called by the Crown, by the prosecution, or by your father's defence team? Do you remember?
They were called by the DP, yeah, Paul and Cameron, yes. Yes.
Right. Yes. Yes. Mr. Stewart.
I have nothing arising now.
Thank you, BCG. Thank you for coming and telling us your story.
Thank you.
You're now formally excused.
Thank you.
The next witness, Your Honour, is Mr. Dino Ali.
So, Dino.
Ali, A-L-I. Yeah, tab 2 of the statements bundle.
It's necessary for you to be sworn to give your evidence. Would you take an oath on the Bible or an affirmation?
I'll take an oath on the Bible.
There's a Bible there. Would you take it in your hand, please? And repeat after me. I swear by Almighty God
I swear by Almighty God
that the evidence I shall give in this Royal Commission
that the evidence I shall give in this Royal Commission
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Yes, thank you. Take a seat, please.
Thank you. Sir, will you state your full names for the record, please?
Dino Ali.
Mr. Ali, when did you become a Jehovah's Witness?
I was baptised in September of 1981.
And how old were you then?
32.
And you served 2 periods as an elder in the Mariba congregation, is that right?
That's correct.
The first was from 1986 to 1997.
Yes, as close as I can recall, yes.
And then you served again from 2006 to 2015.
Yes,
So are you currently an elder in that congregation?
I am.
And when you ceased being an elder in 1997 or thereabouts, what were the circumstances that caused you to cease being an elder?
Personal reasons.
Which do you mean you voluntarily resigned or you were removed?
I voluntarily resigned.
Now, in your statement, you say congregation members do not associate with disfellowshipped persons. What does that mean in a practical sense?
Sorry, I didn't quite catch the first part.
In your statement, you say that someone who has been disfellowshipped, or let me put it the other way around, congregation members do not associate with someone who's been disfellowshipped. what does that mean in a practical sense? In what way do they not associate with a disfellowshipped person?
Well, if it's someone who's not in the family, not living under the same roof, if someone is disfellowshipped, that means simply that a person would not have any more relationship generally with that person who is disfellowshipped.
So no social interaction.
Correct.
And if it's a member of the family in the same house?
If the member is still living under that roof, then some precautions are taken as to how far that will go, but if it's a minor, they'll continue to care for the needs of that person and continue to provide whatever services that is required as a parent, for example, to a younger child or children.
And if a disfellowshipped family member is not living under the same roof, does the usual rule of not associating with them apply?
No, there is a cut-off rule, or not quite a rule, but the principle, a scriptural principle that does quote that we should not even eat with a person like that, which means that we don't fellowship to the same extent as we did in the past. There would be a removal, if you like, for that time that the person is in that state, that wouldn't belong to that family in the same condition as they were beforehand.
And that would last until such time as they were reinstated, if ever?
Correct.
You also say in your statement that members of the congregation have a personal responsibility to report wrongdoing to elders if they become aware of it and the wrongdoer does not come forward. How serious does that wrongdoing have to be that requires a member to report it to an elder?
Well, there are sins that the Bible mentions, like porneia, which involves immoral activities, stealing, which is goes beyond the point of a one-off, but it's a
Yeah, Dr. Jason Morrison, theologist again. I just want to say thank you for watching the videos, and I hope you got plenty of self-rediscovery and freedom out of it. If you watched it on YouTube, please share or like, maybe even comment. If you watched it on Facebook, like, comment, share. But most of all, get out and live. This isn't a rehearsal. You've got a one-off life. Don't let your loyalty and your faithfulness blind you to the life that you should be experiencing. Till the next video, Thank you for watching, and bye for now.